Welcome to your introductory lesson for the IEB English Home Language Common Assessment Task for 2020. I am Tanya Matthews, the Head of English at St. Patrick's CBC in Kimberley, South Africa. This video was prepared for my grade 12s as an online lesson during the nationwide lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. This video contains a wealth of information. I advise you to use it interactively, pausing it at strategic points while you conduct your own research and write your own notes. You will need a copy of the task sheet as issued by the IEB. The focus of this year's CAT is the significance of cartoons. In November 2019, South African cartoonist Jonathan Shapiro, who uses the moniker Zapiro, was made a Knight in the Order of Arts and Letters by the French government. Zapiro was honoured for shaping truth, according to the French ambassador to South Africa. This CAT asks you to critically analyse this form of communication. In the preamble to the tasks, an article by John Baldoni is quoted. The reader is challenged to consider the skills needed to think critically and strategically. More than ever, our world is in need of well-rounded individuals capable of higher order thinking. Matrix, that's you. We need you to develop these skills. This CAT is a means to that end. In the Baldoni article, he puts forward the case for millennials to be taught how to think critically. Well, strictly speaking, you're not millennials, you're part of Generation Y, the post-millennial generation. Stereotypically, you are seen as tied to social media, increasingly independent and entrepreneurial in terms of your thinking, and surprisingly, optimistic about your futures, of which you have high expectations. I'm a boomer. Yes, I am that old. My parents were traditionalists, moulded by the hardships of World War II. Our dates of birth have an enormous impact on our attitudes and approaches to the so-called big issues in our lives. How are you responding to the current big issues? To the coronavirus pandemic? To the looming economic recession? Are you thinking critically about these issues? The CAT uses cartoons as a means to provoke conversation and deep thinking. You are being asked to consider how clever drawings can influence the way you understand issues, such as South Africa's approach to containing the spread of the coronavirus and the monumental fallout of the virus, such as the postponement of the 2020 Olympic Games. You are also being asked to understand and analyze the influence of popular culture. The unexpected hit series on Netflix, Tiger King, is used here as commentary on both the current pandemic and the ridiculousness of the antics of Joe Exotic, the lead character. The depth of your knowledge of Tiger King will determine your enjoyment of this meme. To someone who has not seen or heard of the series, this meme will not make any sense at all. Sigh, the English teacher in me would prefer if that verb were in its correct subjunctive mood. You are expected to look for and analyze cartoons, and possibly memes, that could be considered instrumental in initiating conversations about pertinent current issues. You are expected to see how cartoonists can be powerful agents of change. It doesn't matter what your personal opinions of topical issues are. For example, you could see Donald Trump as a revolutionary president, dousing the flames left by his predecessor's legacy. Or You could see Donald Trump as an imposter who would never be able to fill the shoes of Barack Obama. What matters is the conversation generated by cartoons such as these. You are also expected to conduct meaningful research. For example, you would not be able to select this cartoon of Donald Trump, apparently in danger of being swept away by a tsunami-like wave representing the coronavirus, without referencing this famous woodblock print by Japanese artist Katsushika Hokusai entitled The Great Wave of Kanagawa. Your CAT consists of 5 tasks. This video is task 1. You will use the information in this video as well as your own research to complete the other 4 tasks. Your selection and analysis of discussion-worthy cartoons, task 2, will be used for the group discussions in task 3. This video will give you the information and tools you need to analyze your individually chosen cartoons. The research you do will be used in an oral presentation of 4 to 5 minutes. You will deliver a formal persuasive speech in which you argue for or against a particular cartoonist. Your selected cartoons will be the visual aids in the speech. In essence, you are being asked to analyze cartoons, evaluate them, and then create an essay and a speech in which you present your critical thinking skills. You will see from this depiction of Bloom's taxonomy that you are being trained to operate in the higher order thinking skills. As a matric student, you cannot remain in the lower orders, where it is sufficient to just remember and understand things. Your CAT document provides you with a number of questions to consider as you delve into the world of cartoons. Our world is changing rapidly. Are cartoons still relevant? Where do you stand on the concept of free speech? Should cartoonists tackle any issue, even those considered taboo? Can cartoons marginalize certain groups of people? Take a look at these frames from Tintin. Do they shock you? Look at the colonial and paternalistic attitudes exhibited in these frames. Do they offend you? What do you understand by power relations? How do cartoons position power relations? What makes a cartoon influential enough to result in a shift of preconceived ideas? How have cartoons shaped your thinking? Do you think cartoons should ever be censored? I wonder if you remember the controversy sparked by this cartoon by Zapiro, published in 2008. It depicts Jacob Zuma opening his trousers, clearly about to rape Lady Justice. The woman is being held by then Zuma allies, Julius Malema, Gwede Mantashe, Bladen Nzimande, and Zwelinzima Vavi. The context of the cartoon is that Jacob Zuma was facing charges of corruption, fraud, and money laundering. Political leaders and ordinary citizens were deeply divided on the matter. Shortly before the publication of this cartoon, Jacob Zuma had been acquitted on a rape charge. The cartoon was criticized for many reasons. Zuma and his supporters saw it as a personal and slanderous attack. Many argued that the cartoon trivialized the serious incidents of rape in South Africa, and others felt that it promoted a stereotype of black males as sexual predators. Zuma sued Zapiro, but withdrew the charges in 2012. This cartoon was rated as one of the 15 historic cartoons that changed the world. What is your response to it? From these two follow-up cartoons, it is clear that the cartoonist saw the attempts to sue and censor him as an attack on his right to freedom of speech. How have cartoons influenced you? And this is where you are expected to do research. Find cartoons that have had an impact on your views of the world. A good cartoon usually engages both your heart and your head. We're going to look at a series of cartoons that were published following the 2015 attack on and murder of cartoonists who worked for the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. In 2015, the world reeled in shock when Islamic extremists targeted the offices of a satirical magazine in France. The magazine had published a cartoon depicting the Prophet Muhammad, considered a deeply disrespectful act by many Muslims. The shootings were met by an international outcry, with millions of people adopting the slogan "Je suis Charlie" to express their sadness and outrage. Je suis Charlie means I am Charlie, a statement of solidarity. The attacks drew attention to the power held by cartoonists. Never before had the idiom, "the pen is mightier than the sword," seemed so apt. As you look at the cartoons that follow, take note of their composition, the use of color, and other cartoon conventions. What do the cartoons have in common? And what are the most obvious differences? The literal interpretation of "to be drawn in blood" and "blood, sweat and tears" is obvious in many of these cartoons. The poignancy of this cartoon is palpable. Many of the cartoons appear defiant. In this one, we have Charlie Hebdo thumbing his nose in blood. Many cartoons rely on clever wordplay to create humor. Here, of course, the pun is on the verb to draw. The pun is used again in this cartoon. Note the tragic detail of the twisted frame of the cartoonist's spectacles, the abandoned fountain pen, and the smoking gun. Dabs and Jabs is drawn by an Indian cartoonist. His trademark is the donkey in the bottom right-hand corner. World events are seen through the eyes of Zero, this donkey. Note how the cartoonist makes use of the iconic Eiffel Tower and a typically French moustache in his depiction of the scale, where a few pens outweigh an arsenal of weapons. This cartoon shows an angrily defiant middle finger. The message is clear. You can kill people. You can't kill ideas. This visual speaks to the essence of this CAT task. There is power and influence in cartoons. The tools of the trade, pens, pencils, brushes, and nibs, are the weapons used to bring about meaningful change in society. Do you agree with this concept, that the pen is mightier than the sword? This cartoon is able to communicate so much without using a single word. The two pencils are, of course, an allusion to the Twin Towers that were destroyed by Al-Qaeda bombers on 9/11. It's a clever way of equating the attacks in New York with the attack on the offices of Charlie Hebdo. The World Trade Center, where the Twin Towers were situated, was attacked because it was a symbol of American capitalist ideology. Charlie Hebdo was attacked because it represented the corrupt, irreverent ideology of the West. This is the plea of cartoonists. Use humor to shine a light on contentious issues. Without debate and discussion, how will we ever resolve dilemma? Cartoons are not restricted to comic strips and political or social commentary in newspapers. They're used in graphic novels as a powerful means to tell important stories. Some of you have studied V for Vendetta in your fourth genre. This Guy Fawkes mask has come to represent resistance against injustice. A cartoonist's picture has become an internationally recognized anti-establishment symbol. The graphic novel Persepolis gives an account of the Iranian Revolution and how a secular society was replaced by a restrictive religious one. The novel is seen as a powerful statement against the tyranny of a religious regime. One of the best known and influential graphic novels is the Pulitzer Prize-winning Maus. The cartoonist, Art Spiegelman, depicts his own family history, Jews persecuted by Hitler's Nazi regime. Instead of drawing people, Spiegelman depicts the Nazis as cats and the Jews as mice. Here you can see the style of Spiegelman's cartoons, wicked cats toying with rodents. The detail is exquisite, from the German helmet, the armband with the letter M, to the obvious poverty of the ghetto in which the mice are forced to live. And is that blood spatter on the wall? Spiegelman cleverly subverted Nazi propaganda in his graphic novel. In many anti-Semitic posters, Jews were portrayed as rats, vermin to be exterminated. In Maus, the reader sympathizes with the rodents, not the cats. This recent cartoon sparked outrage as it appeared to echo the technique of anti-Semitic cartoons from World War II. It is clearly a right-wing anti-immigrant cartoon. The message is clear. The migrants, mainly from Middle Eastern Islamic countries, are like rats and should be prevented from entering the European Union. After the bad press that rats have received in the cartoon world, it was amusing to note the depiction of rats as cute, misunderstood creatures in the Disney film Ratatouille. Walt Disney can be seen as the father of modern cartooning techniques. Do some research on this incredible man. Another way in which visual humor is used is memes. A meme is the copying and passing on of a universally recognized image. With the advent of computers and social media, memes have become this generation's most used method of sharing humor. Did you know that memes have been around since the 1970s? This one is for you. And this one is for your teachers. The Department of Basic Education has issued online language notes. These slides are taken from those notes as a means of revision for you. Feel free to pause the video to read everything. You need to determine what the purpose of a cartoon is. Is it to make us laugh, or is it to make a serious point? Make sure you use the correct terminology when writing or speaking about cartoons. For example, strips, frames, punchlines. Familiarize yourself with cartoon conventions, text boxes, different kinds of speech bubbles, thought bubbles, how volume and emotion are depicted. Look carefully at different cartoons and take note how people are depicted. Look at facial expressions, body language. Has a character been deliberately caricatured? Right, it's time for you to get to work. to find your cartoons and a meme. Ask yourself questions about the context and message of the cartoon. Look at the characters, human or other, and analyze their depiction. Study the details, the background, the use of words. How does this add layers of meaning to the cartoon? Here's an example of what I mean about noticing detail. I hope you're familiar with the Calvin and Hobbes cartoon series. Calvin is the little boy, and Hobbes is the tiger. Study this cartoon. What do you notice? Spend some time looking at it. Now spend time studying this one. What do you notice? Did you spot the difference? When Calvin is on his own, his toy tiger Hobbes comes to life. When an adult is present, the tiger is just a soft toy. Let's add to the terminology you already have for the study of cartoons. The unexpected ending in a cartoon is an overthrow of expectation. The traditional twist in the tale is often anticlimactic. Pause the video to engage with each example. Hyperbole is a favorite tool of cartoonists. One of the most common techniques used is wordplay, particularly puns. Here, the play is on tenants, referring either to people who rent a building or the number of insects. Innuendo strays into dangerous territory as it is usually sexual in nature. Here, the round grapefruits look similar to the women's breasts. Euphemistic language can lead to deliberate confusion or misleading statements, which adds to the humor of the cartoon. The backbone of cartoon humor is irony, both situational and verbal. Here, we infer from the onomatopoeia of the middle frame that all is not well with the town crier, as his 11 p.m. update obviously woke and angered the king. Verbal irony often makes use of wordplay. Loretta's long-suffering husband is served burned steak, and he's unimpressed with his wife's musical talent. Don't you just love the understated resignation of his facial expressions? Sarcasm is a biting form of irony. In this Madam and Eve comic, a typically South African situation is highlighted: the bribery of drivers by traffic cops. Here, however, the action is cleverly reversed. Many cartoonists make use of caricature when drawing well-known figures. This can be complementary to the figure, such as this depiction of Springbok rugby captain Siya Kolisi as a muscled superhero. Serena Williams, however, bears the brunt of a grotesque caricature, showing her as the stereotypical angry black woman after a much publicized dispute with an umpire during the 2018 US Open final. The cartoon of Serena Williams first appeared in an Australian newspaper. It was immediately branded as racist, repugnant, and dehumanizing, and reported to the Australian media watchdog, which found that it didn't breach any regulations. The cartoonist responded by saying, "I will not be changing the way I draw cartoons, because I think I'm a very free and fair cartoonist, and I accept issues on their merits and draw them as such." What do you think? Is there a case for freedom of speech here, or is there a case for censorship? Stereotypes are common in many forms of humor. Dumb blondes, angry jocks, You should be familiar with them. Most political cartoons are satirical, as their purpose is to expose and mock the hypocrisy evident in much of our lives. It is particularly effective when it is paired with popular culture. If you have read or watched The Hunger Games, you will know that the districts of the dystopian world of Panem are not too far removed from various areas in South Africa. As our leaders travel in their blue light convoys through townships en route to their plush homes, do they even see the irony of our own Hunger Games? Parody relies on our ability to recognize the distorted images and imitations of well-known works. Here you will recognize the Iron Throne from the television series Game of Thrones. The throne was intended as a symbol of power, forged using the blades of enemies. Mad Magazine gave their own twist to this symbol by placing its regular cover star, Alfred E. Neumann, on a toilet throne. Fans will recognize that he is wearing the cloak of Ned Stark, a character from Season 1. You've received a lot of information from this video. I would like you to do some of your own research now, starting with 2 online articles. The first is an article from July 2019, which gives details of a request made by cartoonists to UNESCO, in which they sought to have their right to freedom of expression protected. The second article is a local one. Many of you might have noticed that South Africans have a reputation for making light of serious situations. This Sunday Times article from March 2020 explores this phenomenon. I'm sure you'll find it very interesting reading. Grade 12s, that was a marathon session. I trust that you have found this video useful and that you feel more confident about the CAT assessments. I'm sure that your teachers will be more than happy to assist you where they can. Good luck with the rest of your school year. I hope you're keeping a journal of these strange times that we are living in. Paste some current cartoons into it. Your grandchildren will marvel at your experiences. That's it from me. Stay safe, everyone.